Great medical service is all about availability, empathy, and competence, said Dr. Harsh Mahajan, an eminent radiologist and also the founder of Mahajan Imaging and Labs. Joining us today is his son, Kabir Mahajan, who's been carrying forward the 30-year legacy of Mahajan Labs. And we'll be talking about his journey, evolution of diagnostics, and the jobs in the allied health space. Let's get to it. So Kabir, welcome to The Vital Shift. Really glad to be sitting with you and excited to talk about diagnostics and the evolution of jobs in healthcare.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
You said Mahajan has been around for 35 years now. Congratulations on the 35th anniversary. Can you tell me a little bit about how it all started?
Sure. So thank you for having me. The journey of our company started with my parents, who set up one of India's first privately owned MRI centers way back in 1992. The journey started in 89, incidentally, when I was born. When they registered a company, it was a partnership, and my father had gone to the MD Anderson to study MRI on a Rotary Foundation scholarship.
Acha. In
88. And after that, when he came back, there was no MRI for him to practice on, except one. In a DRDO lab in Inmas in North Delhi.
No, really? Wow.
So for the interview to be held, for the position to be advertised, it took about less than 2 years for all of the process to take place. And by that time, my dad thought that his knowledge is going waste. So he came up with the idea of setting up an MRI center. But that time, my grandparents were teachers, and there was no money in the family. So he borrowed $40,000 from his uncles in the US. And then my grandfather helped in finding a financial partner. And they placed the order in 1990. But then gold had gone out of the country, and no letter of credit could be established for about 2 years. So for 2 years, they had the center ready, ACs functional, rent was being paid, but the machine couldn't be brought in because letter of credit could be established. And in 1992, finally,
the machine arrived.
The machine arrived, prior to which financing was done, and it was done at 27%.
Oh, that's crazy.
So now when I'm negotiating for 0.25, my father is laughing at me. So in 92 is when they set up one of the first privately owned MRI centers in the country. And that was about 2 to 3 years before AIMS had got an MRI, a few years before PGI, Chandigarh had got an MRI.
That's really impressive.
So that's how the journey really started. And this was in a partnership. Then in 96, they set up one of India's first 1.5 Tesla MRIs in Green Park in South Delhi. And subsequently, there were some problems with the partnership. The main partner had passed away. And in 2003 is when the first Mahajan Imaging Center was established in Hoskas Enclave. It's not about 100 meters from where we are right now. And in 99 was when Mahajan Imaging Private Limited was established. So in 2000 is when my parents, through Mahajan Imaging Private Limited, got the contract to run the nuclear medicine and radioimmunoassay lab at Sir Gangaram Hospital. So we've been doing lab for about 25 odd years now. We don't talk about it. We're predominantly known as radiology and nuclear medicine, but we've been doing lab for about 25 years. And subsequently then Hoskas Center was set up in 2003, which was the first standalone center under the Mahajan Imaging name. And subsequently then we've grown. So this is how my parents started their journey. I entered into the business around 2012 after completing my graduation from Delhi University, post which I had some experience with E&Y in consulting, then studied a bit more, and then 2012 is when I joined the business.
What your father did back in the day was really impressive. I think he must have. I can't imagine the kind of risk that he must have had to take to be able to go through that. And but then you also started with EVA and then decided to switch to this, right? That was a long time ago, of course.
Absolutely.
But what made you go into EVA? What made you switch? Have you brought anything from that experience to this experience?
So the consulting role was right after my undergraduation from the Sri Ram College of Commerce in Delhi University. And at that time, I had no idea what our business is all about. I had no idea if I'll ever go into this line, except I could hear the MRI machine because we were living right above the center. So that was a good sound. But EY was a great experience. I mean, it's one of the best firms globally. It was a short stint, but a very enriching one. Somehow I thought I like working more where I'm talking, meeting people. So that's what really propelled me to move away from the consulting world, although it was a great experience. And then really, having seen my parents struggle it out in the initial years, I thought it's a good chance to grow that legacy. And that's what really propelled me. And being in healthcare, the good part is you're always having an impact on patients.
That's true.
So that's the number one driving factor for any healthcare professional, be it if you're a doctor or a nurse or even if you're on the management side. Everything you do is about the patient. I think that was a key factor in me joining my family's business.
And you've been growing the legacy for sure. You guys have reached about 10 locations now. Any lessons you've learned along the way?
Oh, there are a lot of lessons. We are about 11 centers as we speak and hope to be around 14 by the end of this year. But a lot of lessons. Working with family is not easy.
That's true.
Of course, there are advantages of being in the comfort or the discomfort of your family. But, to establish yourself within a family-run company, I think it's not easy. It comes with its share of challenges, and just the way that my parents have created a legacy, they've created a name. My brother and I are always compared to them.
Yeah, of course.
That's great. I mean, we have very big shoes to fill. So that also, gives us a drive to do something bigger of our own. And besides that, we've been very fortunate that our team, because of which we are where we are and we hope to grow even more, they have been very forthcoming and accepting of me, and forever grateful for all the support that they give to me and the respect that they give to me. But there are challenges for us in order to be accepted as well by the team. So, it's not easy. The other thing is, day in, day out, as an entrepreneur, you would know, you're working for the team to ensure that their salaries are on time, loans are met, the bills are paid. And this side of things is not really seen by...
Of course.
All of that majority
happens, all of that happens behind the scenes.
Absolutely. So I think this is a very real and a very humbling experience to be a part of, because as you would know, radiology equipment doesn't come cheap.
Of course, yeah.
To pay the EMIs, to pay the service, the salaries, it's becoming a challenging thing. So that is something, I see my parents, they are least bothered about finance and accounts. As long as the loans are paid, the salaries are paid, they're content with that. So just seeing how they go about things is how I'm trying to, grow the business, and it's a lot of fun. The other point is no one comes to us, right?
Of course, yeah.
If they're coming for an MRI scan or a CT scan, they're not coming out of choice. It's by compulsion. So seeing what we do for the patients, it has a huge impact on them. Diagnostics has a huge impact on any treatment. to get a chance to play a role in this, it feels great. And to play a major role in someone's treatment, you feel happy at the end of the day. So
I think, you're saying that you feel happy at the end of the day while carrying all of those burdens that you talked about. I think that's and I'll just throw in an anecdote. I think every person that I personally know of who has, come to your centers to avail the services, I think everyone's been unanimously always talked about the empathy of the staff here. Yeah, so I think that's really impressive, and I think that's what I think, being able to stay focused on the patient and providing empathetic care while ensuring that all of these stresses of managing a high capex business like radiology, you're internalizing them and carrying that burden. Not your teams, not your parents. I think that's pretty impressive, and that's on you.
No, absolutely. We strive for that, and that's the ethos that we try to inculcate within the team, and that's where I give so much credit and more to my parents, because as I said, no one comes to us out of choice.
Yeah.
And to hear what you're saying, it does feel good.
When your parents started to versus now, have things in diagnostics changed in that time period as well?
I would imagine so. Because when they started, this was perhaps the only private or one of the few private diagnostic centers doing radiology at that time. And now within Delhi NCR itself, there would be more than 100 MRIs.
Yeah.
So of course, things have changed. That said, the number of patients have also increased. The expectations from patients, from doctors have increased. The technology is advancing every day as we speak. So many things have changed. There is so much more competition. But at the same time, we're never really fighting for the same patient. Unfortunately, in our country, there are just so many patients who need quality healthcare that you're not really going after the same patient.
That's true. You barely scratched the surface of the market.
Absolutely. There's a lot to be done, which is where you guys are playing a huge role.
And what's the role that the government is playing? Has the regulatory landscape changed at all?
So the government is doing its bit in terms of the regulatory landscape, and as there's such an evolution in new technology, artificial intelligence is coming in a big way. There is new software, new hardware being developed.
Right.
And the government is going out of its way as well to ensure that quality medical devices are developed within India. They have given incentives to a lot of manufacturing companies to develop make in India products. Towards that end, even international companies are now developing in India. GE Healthcare, for example, makes multiple types of CT scans, PET CTs within the country, apart from other X-ray based technologies. About 80% of all of their software being used in radiology, in cardiology is developed in Bangalore.
Yeah.
And same goes for Siemens Healthineers. They've developed MRI within India. They're manufacturing the MRI in India, apart from all of their R&D efforts that are done. Similarly, Philips, they have a huge manufacturing facility in India for X-rays and other components, and their global heads of R&D are all based out of Bangalore.
Right.
And we also see companies such as Medtronic, Boston Scientific, all making huge investments in India for their R&D hubs. So the government is playing an active role towards this. Of course, there is a lot more that can be done to promote high quality research within India, because given our disease burden, given the patient base, what might be a rare disease in the West might be fairly common at an All India Institute or a Safdarjung Hospital or even Tata Memorial and the other large tertiary care facilities across the country. So the government has also, as you might know, introduced some healthcare schemes at the central, at the center. Also, every state government is implementing its own healthcare schemes, which is to provide access to healthcare to to the masses. And I think a lot can be done, but in terms of regulatory environment, the government is pitching in by having new mechanisms and evolving mechanisms for giving approvals. Of course, can they be faster? Of course, they can be faster.
Of course, that's always the case.
But
you can always do better.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think it seems to be headed in the right direction.
And you talked about artificial intelligence. So all these new technologies that are coming in, whether it is artificial intelligence or just improvements in the type of imaging available, etc. Do you face any challenges in bringing those kind of technologies in?
So there are great advancements in AI.
Yeah.
And in fact, out of probably 900 odd or 1,000 odd AI applications approved by the US FDA, a majority of them are for radiology.
Oh yeah?
Given that radiology has the advantage because we work on digital images.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of training data available.
Correct.
But to introduce AI within the clinical routine, whether it's an Indian technology or from outside, there are challenges because you need to very deeply first study what's useful for your particular use case. So what might be useful at our private imaging centers may not be useful at an All India Institute or a Safdarjung hospital. It's given the way we work is very different. So identifying the right AI technology to be used for your own use case is very critical. The major hurdle is the integration of AI within the clinical routine. Because theoretically and on presentations, it all looks very great. But when you're actually integrating the solution within your workflows, there lies a lot of challenges because as a radiologist, you don't want to change the way you're working.
Of course.
So you have to ensure that the AI is integrated in a way that the radiologist, who at most times is the actual user of the results, his or her way of working is not disrupted. So the integration of AI is a challenge for which there lie a lot of solutions and a lot of companies are working towards that. Secondly, or thirdly rather, I think the kind of AI that you want to use, whether it's for diagnosis, now chest x-rays and x-rays in general, there are numerous AI technologies that allow you to detect the disease on a chest x-ray, for example. Or there are other kinds of AI technologies that allow you to do more number of scans in the same amount of time, especially for MRI, where you can shorten the scan time while producing the same image quality using artificial intelligence. So you need to really know what kind of AI is required as per your use case. And that in itself can be fairly painful because the way at which technology is evolving, every few days there is a new application which is better than the previous one.
Yeah.
So to stay on top of this is becoming a challenge, to be honest.
And the focus of everything AI is also, there's a large part of it which is just focused on healthcare only.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Although I think there lies a big gap which companies are trying to fulfill as well is for all the non-clinical AI in terms of what a CRM can do to your operational efficiencies. Identifying the busiest time slots or the most available time slots, cancellations, or in a CRM, what are the demands of the patients, where do they want to come for a test, what are the timings and all of that. So all of that, also we at our end, we are also trying to make sense of that, which is the margin for error in this case is a bit higher than a clinical AI technology. Because you can't, in healthcare, one has to understand that a millimeter here and there can mean life and death, whereas I don't know if you noticed, but Google Maps still cannot get this place right. So.
Oh, is it? But what we're saying is that the market is growing very quickly, patient expectations and doctor expectations both are sort of
Absolutely.
demanding more and more, and you have to deliver all of that while keeping costs
Absolutely.
costs low. And then, of course, technology is changing, and technology, I guess, by technology changing, that's also creating opportunities for you to be able to find those efficiencies.
Correct.
But as you bring in all these automations, what's the impact on the human element? Like, I mean, what is? Do you think that there are changes that people in your teams will have to do, or changes that will happen to them? How do you sort of see that, and how do you strike a balance between their expertise, their context, versus the new technologies that you're bringing in?
Sure. So I think in any healthcare organization, the human touch has to be there.
Yeah.
I think no amount of automation can do away with the human, a face-to-face meeting, just a pat on the back by our radiologist to the patient that you're fine. I think that goes
a long way.
a long way than a automatic report which says that you're fine. So I think that human element has to be there, will always be there, which is why at our end, while we want to automate the whole contact center operations, still we prefer that we speak to the patient for any appointment. So that human element will always be there. Yes, technology will be an enabler for us to do more, to do things better, to make it more streamlined. But especially in our market where we are so emotional in India, we are so emotional, so attached to each other, the human element will always be there, and there lies the need for good quality institutes to train all healthcare professionals, allied healthcare workers. There is absolutely no going away from that.
So you don't see automation sort of replacing these jobs?
Oh, not at all. I think even for radiology, which is they say will be heavily automated, like lab medicine.
I
mean, lab medicine is fully automated for the most part, but still there lies a huge shortage of pathologists in the countries. Similarly, we expect in radiology, one radiologist will be probably 5 or 6 times more efficient in the coming years. But still, look at UK, look at US, forget about India, China, Africa. Even the US and UK are severely understaffed in terms of technologists, in terms of radiologists. So while AI will come in, it will enable them to do much more than what they currently do. And unfortunately, the gap is so huge that no amount of automation, at least to our mind, can fully cover that up, at least
in the foreseeable future.
Absolutely.
So, but this is interesting. So you're talking about how there's already a shortage of radiologists, technologists, and the market is obviously growing. I think we can both agree that as more and more automation comes in, the market will actually accelerate. It will actually, because I think that's what happened in pathology also, right? Like the more automation came in, the ability of the service providers to provide accurate results at scale for a reasonably low cost, I think that kept on going up, and I think the penetration of pathology has really gone up in the last 10 years, and probably the same will happen to radiology as well. I think besides the fact that that customer expectations from healthcare are shifting, are there any other ways in which the jobs of allied health have evolved or are evolving right now? Because we're talking about the market is growing, there's so much competition. There is also automation that is coming in. Maybe some machines are changing, and then they are the ones who have to also deliver all of this care with a lot of empathy. I'm just thinking that like when you zoom into their lives, and we could be talking about radiology, allied health, or pathology allied health. What do you think the changes are that they're sort of experiencing?
So I think that's a great point that you make, and technology at all levels is evolving, right? So right from our phlebotomist who is now using a field service application by Salesforce. They have to get knowledge about that. Then our MRI or CT scan technologists are constantly having to learn new applications from the application specialists of the various vendors. I think technology at all levels is evolving, whether it's clinical, whether it's non-clinical, operational. So I think we want the workforce that you described to be more aware of these new technologies, and because the team members who've been around for generations are not as aware of these technologies. So we expect the newer lot to help us also, bring us up to speed and bring our team members up to speed with what's happening. I think that will be very critical. And we faced this while we were introducing a CRM system for the first time in our contact center. I remember the pains I had to take to convince our team to convince them about its utility and benefits, and then slowly it happened, but it takes a lot of effort. And then similarly, when we were introducing the phlebotomy management application for our phlebotomists and our logistics head and our pathology manager to just come to terms with it that the dispatch will be automated. No one has to manually assign addresses to the phlebotomist. That was a big change. So I think these are very small but very real examples of how technology is evolving, and how the healthcare workforce has to keep up pace with these technologies, and they have to evolve.
So Kabir, for a minute, I want to talk about what we are seeing in the home collection space as well, right? Because I think the demand there is exploding over the last 10 years. I think something has really changed, and there's a lot of home collection that's happening now. How are you seeing this trend? How is it impacting your business? Are you seeing the same thing as we are seeing?
Oh, definitely we are. And when we started with our lab, home collection was a natural fit. Of course, we did start with COVID-19, where most of our samples were done through home collection. And I think that is what really gave us the confidence to venture into home collection, but also at large, the population realized the benefits and the convenience of someone coming home to pick up your sample. I think it's great as long as the lab is doing the job in all honesty and with all integrity in terms of the quality of report that is being generated. I think we do see a big rise in home collections going forward. Not only home collections, but home health in general. We are seeing demand for home X-rays, for portable ECGs. There is a lot of demand for portable ultrasounds, which of course in our country is not permitted under the PCPNDT law. But definitely we do see home health rising a lot. There are a number of companies that are there for home ICU, home nurses, and they recreate a hospital within the home itself. So I think home collections, home X-rays, home ECGs is a natural fit. And there is a rise in the number of point-of-care testing devices that are being developed now. So I think all of this will lead to a huge rise in the number of home collections and home-based tests. Home collection in general are increasing at about 30% year on year as per industry reports. So that tells you what it will be like in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right that we have to ensure that the quality of the test is not compromised. So the phlebotomist should be well trained, I suppose. If they're trained and they know how to take care of the sample, then it should be fine. But yeah, I think in terms of the volume of phlebotomists that are needed in India, I think that's definitely exploded now with all the changes in the landscape. Any sense of the ratio of, say, pathologists to lab techs to phlebotomists, has that evolved at all? I don't know if you have any data on that, but otherwise just anecdotally or, from what observation you're seeing, any sense of those numbers?
So what I do know is that only about 3% of labs are NABL accredited. And for NABL, there needs to be a full-time or a part-time pathologist in the lab. And what this means is that there are a few lakhs of labs, but only about 7 to 10,000 pathologists for the entire country. So that gives you a sense of the gap that exists despite all the automation that we spoke about.
So in some sense, it's the lab techs and phlebos that are running these labs.
I would imagine so, and which is perfectly fine because you don't need a pathologist everywhere.
Yeah.
But the lab tech has to be qualified enough and should ideally be reporting at some stage to a pathologist. Who might not come every day, but at least a few times a week should be there ideally.
Yeah.
But to be honest, this is also not practically possible in large parts of the country. So we also have to develop standards which are acceptable, which are practical, yet they are acceptable in terms of quality. So we have to be also cognizant of the realities of our country and only then develop these standards.
So Kabir, I think finally I just want to ask you any personal anecdote you want to share from your journey so far.
So it's been it's just the start for me, but whatever little it has been, it's been very rewarding. And, the biggest joy is when the kind of feedback that patients give to us, but it's also particularly humbling to see that there are some famous personalities that often visit us for their tests. And it's fairly humbling to see how normal they are when they come for their own tests. And the bravest of these personalities who you might see on TV or in the cricket field, etc. They all have a very distinct personality when they come to us inside an MRI machine. So they are not the same. So I'm remembering this time when a famous Bollywood actor, very well known to be very fierce, had come for his own MRI. But when we took him in to the open MRI machine, he was still very scared. And then he requested one of our staff members to hold their hands. And the patients outside were like, oh wow, you made that guy, you made him humble. And
So basically, just to sort of recap some key points from today, I think, so there's this healthcare in India is already a massive market, but deeply underpenetrated.
Absolutely.
So I think there is a lot of room for growth. Plus, there's so much technological change that's coming, which is going to further accelerate this growth. But as healthcare providers, we have to stay cognizant that we have to provide accurate and precise results to the patients in a very empathetic manner. Do that all at a very high convenience, growing convenience,
absolutely
cheaper cost, while continuing to grow a very high capex business.
Absolutely.
And that's something that, like managing all of these in parallel is your job essentially.
You made me feel very good about myself.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us, Kabir. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.